Allie, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here.
I'm super excited because it's not very often I get to talk to somebody that's as passionate about small business, especially local small business, and the freedom entrepreneurs need to thrive. So I'm so glad you're here today.
Yeah, this is a really important topic, in my opinion. I think through the last year, we've seen how difficult it has been for these types of businesses specifically. And the fact that I'm able to try and give them some way to overcome the regulations or the lockdowns and really kind of take control of the direction of their business, regardless of that, something I'm extremely passionate about and thrilled to talk about it today.
So before we dive in, do you mind doing maybe a brief intro and just talk about how you got started and why you're so passionate about small business?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been in marketing about 10 years now. And when I was still in college, I had to do basically an internship. And I ended up working for this publishing company that did trade magazines for local businesses. So they did a couple of different industries, but it was across the United States and Canada. And these were going to the business owners, and they were focusing on things like marketing, sales, technology, leadership, management. So it's really an informational resource. And then obviously we were selling advertising within those magazines. And I was able to help them launch a brand new magazine when I was there. I kind of transitioned from an intern to started working there full time. And it was for local jewelry stores. And through that, I was doing basically everything, the ad sales, the writing, the interviewing, really anything related to that. So I got to talk to so many of these small business owners, really understand in depth the challenges and the struggles that they were facing. And it was just something that has stuck with me for a very long time. So after that, I became the marketing director for two large local businesses in my area. And then I started my agency not too long after that. And I've just always worked with local businesses. I've never really had a tremendous amount of experience with any other type of business, and just the in-depth work that I've been able to do with them has really allowed me to see how much help they need. But most importantly, I've always felt that local businesses, and I guess you can say non-corporate businesses, it's been a part of my life for as long as I can remember. I was a server and a bartender throughout college. And so I saw very, very early on that corporate life was not for me. Even in those environments, you see how these like ridiculous policies and rules, they're not serving anybody. They decrease morale, they don't increase it. And everybody just kind of hates them, yet you still have to follow these rules because it's a corporate run business. And so I've always just been a lot more at home in those mom and pop type of establishments where they're more friendly a lot of times, but they understand that we're a business full of people and individuals, and the things that we enforce really need to be working for those actual humans that are working here. So that's just been something that I've felt for probably most of my life, and then just transitioned to a place where I was already working with local businesses. I had come up with effective marketing systems for local businesses. It was a very natural next step when I started my agency, because that was everything that I had done. All of my systems and strategies were designed for local businesses. So lots of different reasons that I love working with them. But I think most importantly, local businesses are the hearts of our communities. It is the place where people go to gather. It's the place where people go to be together and to support people. And if you're in a community and you want to start a business, this is typically the option that you're taking. So it's a lot closer to home for people. And these small business owners, whether they grow and expand or stay as a single location, or a service business maybe that doesn't even have a location, they are extremely powerful in our economy as well. They're the ones that are hiring people in their local communities. They're the ones that are typically giving back to causes within their local communities. So there's just so many benefits of this type of business, but unfortunately they often go overlooked. And especially in this period that we're going through, where it feels like everything is being controlled by corporate companies, that they're not close to the people in these communities. They're not run from these communities. And so they don't make decisions based on what's best for these communities. I think it's really, really, really important that we try and elevate local businesses and support them in whatever way we can. So that's kind of my long story short. Started my agency. I've shifted in, I wouldn't say more of a coaching direction and mentorship direction, but I still do some agency. I do a lot more of that coaching and mentorship for local business owners and agency owners or marketers that are working with local businesses. And that's been something that has been really awesome to do, getting to work so closely with them, especially given the fact that there's a good percentage of local businesses who it may not be a good option for them to hire an agency, whether that's financially or maybe they have somebody in house, but that person just, they don't necessarily know all of the things that they need to be doing. And so that's been a great opportunity for me to serve this audience that wouldn't necessarily ever be a good fit for an agency service.
What's amazing about your story, and I love highlighting stories like yours because you went through such a really cool evolution. And at each step, you figured out how to bring somebody up. So, honing a skill and willing to put in the work as an intern to a marketer and then a marketer to an agency owner. And now you're at the point where you can take what you've learned in building an agency and multiply that.
Mhm.
And I have a fundamental belief that if you want to create exponential change in the world, look to an entrepreneur.
Totally agree.
So, what have you seen at the different points, from getting your first customer, to scaling into a real business, and now at the point where you're helping other business owners? What have you learned at each of those stepping stones that surprised you?
Yeah. So, going from somebody who was an in-house marketing director for about 5 years before I started my agency, I already knew how to do most of all of the marketing stuff. The marketing and sales came pretty naturally to me, but once you decide to take the leap and start a business, it's intimidating. Even if you're fully equipped to do everything you're doing, you're still the person that has to run all these different aspects, the administrative side, the financial side. So it's a lot of, I wouldn't say a lot of pressure, but it definitely is something that you have to adjust yourself to, even if you're highly experienced in the area that your business focuses on. So really just getting used to the back end part of the business and that you are the only person you can rely on, and that every single thing that happens in your business is a direct result of what you're doing or not doing. Obviously, hiring, training, those were things that I had done in my roles before, but it's a little bit different because then you have the full responsibility of making sure that those people are performing, that you are able to let them go if they're not performing. And then, of course, just trying to juggle all of these different aspects, especially the sales side with everything else, because I had done sales before, so I was comfortable doing it. But, the time that goes into being on sales calls and actually having to do that while you're doing the actual service that you're fulfilling for people, that was something that I really had to learn to balance. And then obviously hiring a salesperson was one of the best decisions I've ever made in my business to free up all of that time. So that was incredible, but obviously, it doesn't make sense until you're at a certain point to be able to do that. And then just really realizing how much passion I have for teaching and training people and trying to create these easy to follow systems for them and trying to not just help them on the marketing side. That's really something I've noticed so much through my mentorship program is, people join for the marketing stuff, but then it's not just the marketing stuff that we're talking about. It's sales, it's administrative, it's mindset and, personal development. So there's a lot that I've been able to share and really help people with that I didn't necessarily think I would be able to, just in terms of what our focus was. But those are all things I'm really passionate about. So it's been great to be able to kind of pass along that knowledge and help guide people through some of those stages that I went through as well.
So, speaking of those stages, do you remember your very first customer when you went out on your own? And then more recently, when you decided to move into the coaching realm, what that first customer experience was like?
Yeah. So my situation when I started my agency was a little bit unique because I was already working as a marketing director for this company. I had a salary. I was able to negotiate and transition my relationship with that company from marketing director to agency. And so I was able to keep my same salary, and, I already knew how to do everything for them. And so that made my position a lot easier because I had been thoughtful in the way that I approached it. I didn't want to burn any bridges. I didn't want to, end a relationship that had been really important to me, but I was able to take that and give myself some security because I didn't have any sort of decrease in income really because of that. So that gave me a lot more leverage to, I think, just be a bit more less stressed, when it comes to being in the early stages of your business. So my first clients outside of that, I had actually done a course before I even officially launched my agency, like while I was still employed. I was trying to decide, do I want to go into the info space or the consulting space or the agency space? And at this point, I do all of them. But I knew I had to kind of start with one of them, in my mind at least, and really try and focus on building that and then expand. And so I decided that I wanted to do the course first because I'd already had all of the experience. I already had all the systems and everything for the marketing stuff. And so I ended up just, taking 3 to 4 months and creating this course. Ironically, I didn't really promote it much after that, but I did get somebody to buy my course really early on, which was very exciting. They just found me online. And then I was very active in Facebook groups, just, providing value, answering people's questions. And I had been able to just develop an audience of people through that, or a network of people that saw what I was able to do and respected my abilities and things like that. And so some of my first clients came from Facebook groups directly, just getting those people on sales calls and closing them and taking it from there. So that was really my first several clients, I think, were just organic social media marketing, Facebook groups, things on my personal profile. I had made sure to really try and build a friends list that was full of people that were in my ideal audiences. And so that was really kind of how it took place. Maybe just, taking the time to actually get to know people online, I think, is really important, and taking the time to share what you're doing and what's working and help others. People, they want to be a part of that, when they see that consistently, I think. And so I did a webinar as one of my early marketing strategies, and that worked pretty well. And then I decided to do a 5-day challenge. So this was one of my earliest marketing strategies for myself, and I just did them organically at first. So my first one was totally organic, but I mean, I made like 12 grand off of my first one without putting any money into it, besides just posting on my social channels and trying to create lead magnets that I was sending out through organic social media. And once I saw that, I was really just excited because I had a great time doing it. I was able to teach people, which was really fun. And I continued to make that work. I continued that strategy. And then I just started running paid ads for them and was able to scale that up. So that's kind of the client experience side. And then for coaching, I was actually in a coaching program, and I had a lot of people that reached out to me about help with them as a marketer or as an agency. And at that point, I had nothing to sell to those people. That wasn't my typical client avatar. And so I would just give them free advice, but I was able to get a lot of really cool opportunities with Social Media Examiner and perpetual traffic and things like that, to where marketers knew who I was and they were trying to buy something from me, yet I had nothing to sell to them. And so my coach at the time encouraged me to do a group coaching program because of that. I already had this group of people who wanted to buy. I just didn't have anything to sell. And so I decided to do a 5-day challenge and launch this group coaching program. And I timed it with a couple of, big interviews that I had coming out. I ran ads for the first time for myself for that experience. And I only spent a couple $1,000s, maybe like 2.5 grand overall. And I made like 60,000 on my beta round. And so I was able to get, 10 to 12 people to sign up for the very first program. That was a 3-month program at the time. And it was focused on trying to help them set up their system, because I had just seen through so many other coaching programs and courses and things like that, that these people, they would pay big bucks to be a part of this, and then they came out on the other side with nothing tangible. And I'm like, how is that possible? What are you teaching them if you're not actually, encouraging them to set these things up that they need in their business? And so that was my goal, to try and in 12 weeks help them develop a strategy, help them set up their first funnel, get their gated content offer put together, get their back end email and text marketing set up, and then set up their ad account and get their first ads running. So it was really focused on building something that you can use. And I think that was a really attractive part of the offer, because people had not really seen that with other programs. And I also did 3 live calls per week, which I still do that today. But that was the other aspect that was really something I heard a lot of positives from the people who bought in, because a lot of programs they'd been a part of, there just wasn't that much live support, and they needed it, especially my audience of local business owners. They are not marketers. They are highly capable in their skills, but they did not feel confident at all on the technical side. And so that's what I was able to help them do. And then from there, I did several more challenges to 3-month programs. And then I eventually transitioned that to a 12-month program to be able to just provide longer term support, help them in a variety of ways, as opposed to just this first phase, essentially, of setting it up. And then, there wasn't really anything after that I had to offer them. So that's been a great shift, is extending that out to the 12-month program. And I have marketers, I have local business owners, and it's my hands down favorite part of my business to this day, and definitely want to plan on, continuing to scale that side specifically.
One of the things I really want to get your opinion on, and I have an assumption that you've done it really well, you seem to focus really well on your zone of genius. Like, you have owned understanding local marketing better than anybody I know. And you just double down on it again and again and again, to the point where you perfected it, then taught it, and now mentor that approach. How much has just staying in that lane benefited you?
Oh, I think tremendously, in all honesty. I see so many people in the marketing space bounce around with different niches. And the interesting thing is, there are a lot of marketers that work with local businesses. Specific niches is like what you typically see. You don't see a ton of like general local business marketing. But pretty early on, I noticed there was nobody that was claiming that space, because when I was trying to learn this myself, there was nobody that I could truly learn from. So what I did was, I took these strategies that were primarily designed for e-commerce businesses or coaches or courses or whatever was being taught. I mean, I love digital marketers, so I took a lot of digital marketer courses and things like that, but they're not really designed for the local business. And even though so many of the concepts apply, most local businesses did not understand how to translate that from someone's teaching me about e-commerce or a course or coaching. How do I make that work for a local business? And because I had already had to go through that and really say, okay, this is what they're teaching me. Now, how can I apply it to this business that I'm marketing for? I was already able to create those systems. And just from being able to work with a lot of different businesses, I knew that essentially it works for all types of local businesses. The offer and a few of the back end, the sales process, that's really the only difference. But nobody was really owning the local business marketing arena. And so as I started to just gain momentum and do more speaking and training and teaching, and those were always the topics that I was speaking on, I started to just kind of naturally develop that audience. And I decided to just go for it. I mean, granted, I had no other option because that's all I knew. But instead of trying to niche down as so many in the local marketing space do, I really wanted to keep it open for local businesses in general, because I didn't want to alienate the people who could use this and did need this. So I do still have, 1 or 2 what I would call niches of people that I work well with, but at the same time, I work with a lot of different types of businesses. I just have pretty extensive experience in like the kitchen and bath and remodeling industries. So that's something I'm also kind of known for, but at the same time, I'm always running ads for local businesses as a whole. And then sometimes I'll have specific campaigns for those audiences, but they're just going to sign up for one of the offers that anybody else can sign up for. They typically just appreciate how much knowledge and understanding I have in their industry, which is a bonus. But yeah, not shifting away from that, not trying to do what other people were doing, and really just deciding this is my knowledge base. And I don't want to try and like become an e-commerce expert when that's not what I've been doing. And also, this is kind of an open lane, in my opinion. And so I think I made that decision, I guess, in 2018 to really go full force on just the local marketing stuff. And it's been working tremendously. And it has allowed me to, I think, get access to a lot more opportunities because there are not a ton of people that focus on local. And so if you're looking at, conferences and events and things like that, they know that there's a group of local business people that need help too. And so instead of trying to compete against all of these other people that are in the e-com space, or, maybe it's like chatbots or something that anybody can use, but is typically more techy, I was really able to, I think, get more additional opportunities because there were not a lot of people who had built an audience around local and had a really extensive knowledge base within the local space. So I think sticking with it has been critical, but also paying attention to where the opportunities lied in terms of my branding and my, the audience that I was really trying to serve. And turns out it was a very good move. So I'm happy that it worked out that way.
So, speaking of branding, I'm a huge believer in developing a personal brand in conjunction with your company.
Mhm.
And I've benefited tremendously. How did your personal brand help the different opportunities you've explored?
Yeah, I think it helped a lot. And it's interesting. I was talking to my students about this story the other day when I first decided to start my business. So I'm a graphic designer by trade. That's what I ended up graduating with a degree in. And so I love graphic design. I love branding. I love putting together logos and coming up with all of that stuff. Well, so I spent so much time trying to figure out which name I was going to call my business. I made all these different logo ideas. And then I was listening to a video. I think it was somebody who they have kind of an agency. It's kind of like a virtual assistant company, but she said something that really just stuck with me. And she said, if I could go back and do things differently, the one thing I would do is call my business, my name, because people already get to know you, especially on social media. They know you for your name. And if they can simply learn about your business and search for your business with that in mind, I think it would make things a lot easier. And so I was like, okay, Allie Bloyd Media. And I scrapped everything I'd been working on and I just decided to do that. I came up with my logo in probably 20 minutes and that's what I use today. And I do think that that's been a big part of it, being able to consistently brand myself with my name. And also the fact that, even though I, intend to scale a very large business, I want my business to be personal to me because it is. It's really based on my brain and my knowledge base, and I can still teach people to help me, but I'm always going to be a part of that. I never intend to fully remove myself from my business as some people want to. I know a lot of agencies that they don't want to be the face of their agency. They don't want their name tied to their agency, but I've never been like that. I also think it does force you to always try and act with integrity, always try and do the very best possible job because it's not just a business, it's you, and people know that. I also think that just creating content was a huge part of that as well because I like doing video. And so I started doing video pretty early on. I was always trying to just test new things. And so I did the webinars and I did the 5-day challenges. And so I was really able to establish myself on a more personal level because of that, because video is personal. Even if you're not talking to one person on the other end, they're still hearing from you. They're still learning from you. They're seeing your face, hearing your voice. And I think that that's been a really, really big part of it. Because if you don't have this face to your company, even if you are a company that's a small business or kind of a boutique style, you're kind of seen as like this faceless entity. Like, where's the personality? Where is the, what are your values? Things like that. And so I do think that you can build a business without necessarily having a personal brand pretty successfully, but it's never really been the right fit for me because my business is personal and the way that I work with my clients, it is personal. And so I think it's been a great decision. But most importantly, I think the content side has been the biggest, just magnifier of the personal branding, because if you're not creating content with a personal brand in mind, it's going to be seen as generic automatically.
I can say that that has paid off in dividends for me. Having a podcast and just an established brand, it's paid itself in probably tenfold for the effort I put into it.
Absolutely.
The one thing I want to talk about, like the biggest thing I love about entrepreneurship, it allows you to pursue your passions. You can go deeper into some of your hobbies. And I know recently you had the opportunity to dive back into poetry, which led to a book.
Mhm.
Can you tell me more about that and more about the book itself?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've actually been writing poetry since I was a kid. 5 years old is like the earliest memory that I have of writing poetry. It's just something I've done my whole life. And I don't really know why. It's just been something that always came naturally to me. And I have never stopped writing. I just didn't really share it with anybody. It was never for anybody else besides myself. It was really just a way of, it was a creative outlet and helps me figure out the world around me and explore my own thoughts and feelings and emotions. And it's always something that I just have a lot of fun doing. So that's what I did. And over the course of the last year, obviously, we've seen, some crazy stuff going down in the world. And of course, my writing was reflecting a lot of those topics just, out of um, the same regard for everything else, trying to figure out the world around me, trying to really make sense of things that are going on. And so I just started posting some of them here and there, just on my regular social channels. And I got a really great response from it. I also noticed something pretty significant, at least in my mind, and that was the fact that I could be talking about maybe some more serious or heavy topics, or maybe something people would call a controversial topic, but through poetry, I was not seeing the same amount of like anger and, fighting and bickering that goes on in the comments section. It seemed to be opening up more conversations, having people ask more questions, and even getting people to kind of see things in a different light. And I thought that that was just incredibly important, because it had never really occurred to me before that poetry could be a medium that could reach people in a different way, especially about topics that are, people kind of shut them down. Like, you don't want to hear what other people have to say. You don't want to look at any information that contradicts your own views. And that's not healthy for anyone. It doesn't matter if you change your mind or not. Being able to understand where someone else is coming from that does not necessarily agree with you, I think that's critical in having a harmonious world. We're never all going to agree on things, but if you can't simply acknowledge that someone else has a point in how they feel, even if it differs from your own, that's not good. And so the more I started to see that, the more it just kind of stayed in my mind that this is something that could be powerful for people, especially at a time when I think we are in more of that situation than ever before. People are extremely divided. If you don't agree with me, then I don't even want to talk to you about this. And the other part of it is that when we're online, you may be having what you consider a personal conversation with somebody, but it's not. People can see that. And so because of that, there is this desire to be right and to, want to try and maybe like take shots at people and things that you're not really looking at what they're saying. You're not really taking it to heart. Very few people will ever be willing to admit that they're wrong. I've had that happen like 2 times, and I screenshotted it both times because I was like, this is so freaking rare. I've got to save this just to refer back to later. And so because of that, I just started to feel like, hey, maybe this is something where poetry, it's not like an op-ed. It's not like a news story or a headline where people automatically go into it with this assumption that there's an angle or a bias there. I think we can all agree that you look at something and depending on who wrote it, where it's from, what the headline says, you already have an idea of how you're going to feel about it. And for the most part, that assumption is right. There's really no way to discredit that, but that's not a good thing if you want to actually open people's minds and maybe bring light on something that someone really needs to be aware of. And poetry is this format where when you read it, you're not reading Allie Bloyd. You're just reading words. It's not something that you necessarily say, oh, well, Allie wrote that because blah, blah, blah. It's just a different experience. And I never really thought about poetry like that up until the last year, because again, I never had really any intention of sharing it with people outside of my immediate family. And then I just decided that this was the time. I needed to publish this book. I basically had all the content for it before I ever decided to publish it. So it wasn't really something that took me too long because I had been writing for so long and these topics were already there. And it has been something so fulfilling, because I do love poetry and I always have wanted to write a book. I never knew that it would be a poetry book would be my first one. I always assumed I'd write a business book first, and I've had novel ideas for a long time. And, it's always something I've wanted to pursue, but I stay pretty darn busy on a regular basis. And it just wasn't something that I felt a sense of urgency to pursue. But because I had the content and because I felt that this was something that was so needed in the world right now, I just decided to go for it. And so here it is. It's called Uncensored America, Thought-Provoking Poetry on Faith, Family, and Freedom. And those are all things I'm passionate about. I think that more now than ever before, people need to take a step back and say, what's truly important in life? What is it? Stop looking at things from, this event and this event and this event and this event, and really say, do those things matter at all? If they do, what am I going to do about it? But our families are everything, and our relationships with people are everything. And for me personally, my faith is everything. And regardless of if somebody agrees with some of I wouldn't even say because it's really not full of opinions at all. It's more of like, I ask a lot of questions through my poetry. That's really the thought-provoking aspect of it. And I also frame things in a different way. Like I wrote, one of them is called The Great Theft, and it's about Congress, but it's like a circus. It's about a circus, so it's like you write from a different aspect. It's more creative. People are able to just, it's fun, even when you're talking about some of those more serious things, but it really does make you think about things in a different way. And it's got 7 different chapters. They all cover different aspects of things that I think are really important right now. And my goal is to just hopefully give somebody some hope and some encouragement, help them find some peace and clarity during this time where things are so crazy and chaotic and changing constantly every single day, but also to really shed light on some of these things that I see as really big, important topics or issues, but to write about them in a way that won't push people away, that will get them to maybe just sit inside their own home alone, knowing nobody is expecting a response from them, knowing that nobody is waiting for them to come back with something. They can really just sit and stew on this. And even if they don't necessarily align with everything that's being discussed initially, I think it's also going to plant the seeds that will make them be more aware when they do see these things moving forward. And so I'm just really excited to get it out there, maybe bring poetry back, make it cool again, I guess. But most importantly, I just think that it's a format that can be used to really open people's minds at a time when they need it the most. So it's been great, really exciting. I was able to use so many of my graphic design skills to design the book. And it was very much a work of just my passion and things that I love. And I've gotten such a great response so far. So it's really just incredible. Like I'm definitely going to write a second one because I still write poetry every day. I'm not going to stop doing it. And so now I know how easy it is to get this published. I already have a group of people who've been reading it. And so, we'll see how it goes. And even if I never expected this to make a lot of money or anything. If it does, that'd be cool, obviously. But for the most part, just to really try and help somebody, even one person, through my writing and get them to see the world maybe through a different lens.
I absolutely love your approach and across everything you do. Like it's so focused on providing value and helping the people like that you're serving, whether it's through your poetry or through your agency or through your coaching. Before we get to the final question, where can people follow you, learn more about it, and where can they buy the book?
Yeah, so if you want to go to uncensoredamericabook.com, you can check it out there. There's going to be an option for you to get the link to buy. And if you want to go on Amazon, you can find it on there too. You can also learn more about me personally on social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn. Those are kind of my main hangouts, or alliebloydmedia.com. I've got a lot of great free resources that you can grab, free video trainings, things like that. So definitely check it out.
Awesome. I will make sure to post all of those in the show notes. And the final question we have for you today is, what is the one lesson you can share with the audience to help them find happiness in their pursuits?
I think it's kind of like we already talked about, focusing on what's actually important in life. You know, money doesn't make you happy. I have always been someone who wanted to make a lot of money, not necessarily for the sake of money, more like success validation, I guess you can say. The more money you make in your business, and you know, you've seen entrepreneurs, it's like a scorecard of how are my decisions going? What is the service I'm providing? Is it helping people? And the more money I've made, I have absolutely realized that it doesn't play much of a part in my life. I've never been a big spender. I'm a saver. I am still extremely frugal. I have more money than I've ever had before, but I still am like, should we order a pizza tonight? Like, it's just how I am. And so it just has made me, especially in the last year, it just reinforces that money does not matter. What matters is what you're providing to people, if you are helping them, but most importantly, your family, your relationships, your faith, the things that will remain despite your business ups and downs. Because let's be honest, there's no guarantee any of us will stay in business forever. That's just how it is. We hope to, of course, but life is full of ups and downs. And even if you do stay in business, there's going to be a lot of highs and a lot of lows. And if that's the only thing that you have to determine your self-worth, you're not going to be happy, because it's going to be fluctuating, sometimes because of things you do, but sometimes because of things you can't control. And so you really have to have that solid foundation of people who genuinely care about you in real life, not just online, despite I have so many great online relationships, but you've got to have those people who know who you are as a human, who care about you, who care about your mental health, who care about your physical health, who care about your spiritual health, and realize that it's like the little things in life that bring you joy. Like my daughter, greatest source of joy in my life, being outside and just sitting in the grass with the sunshine, like those are things that bring me joy. Writing poetry, so it's like being able to have a successful business, I think, comes back in so many ways to your happiness level and your fulfillment level outside of business. Because if you are fulfilled in other areas of your life, that's going to shine through in your business. People are going to see that, and it's going to make them take notice. So I think it's more about just really taking a step back, saying technology is not everything. You know, the world and its crazy events, it's not everything. If you want to really make a difference, start in your home, the people around you, the people you love, and then serve your community, this local area in which you live. That's the biggest impact all of us can make. And if we're all doing that, the world is automatically going to become a better place. So just don't focus on the negatives too. I think there's so many negatives that are consistently bombarded every single day. It is something I do think is important to pay attention to. I think we can't like shut it out and live in a bubble, but having that frame of reference in terms of what is truly important, what is my motivation in making a difference or making a change, and do these things impact me, or does this person's opinion of my beliefs or my thoughts, does it impact me? Do I care? Probably not. You know, if you're confident that you are doing things for the right reason and you know what you believe and why you believe them, I think it's a lot easier to see things through a more clear lens. So just staying positive, and it's easier to stay positive when you've got those real life relationships and the spiritual relationships and, positive mental and physical health, those things are going to change everything in your life. So I guess that's what I would say. Just realize it's not about money. It's not about success. It's about you being happy, because things can change at any moment for any of us. And we will not be on our deathbeds wishing we'd worked more. We'll be there wishing that we'd spent more time with the people we love.
Great, great advice. Thanks so much for joining me today, Allie.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.